Hello everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I'm back with another Tip Tuesday. I know it's been a little bit since I've had a video, and it's gonna be a quick one. I've got some noise in the background, the whole family's home, so we're gonna try to get through this as quickly as possible. But this Tip Tuesday came from Lori at By the Well for God. She had mentioned it to me a while back that some of the ladies in one of her classes was playing with stamping and coloring on clear sticker paper. And so I've been kind of playing around and kind of testing some things to see what would work. And I think that this would be a great idea for a lot of you. I can't even tell you how many times I get questions in my emails, in my private messages, with people asking, you know, what type of inks to use in your Bible journaling that will avoid bleed through. And unfortunately, there is not a perfect ink that gives you permanency that you can watercolor over without bleed through, or you can stamp with pigment ink, which doesn't bleed through but isn't permanent. There really isn't a perfect ink out there. So I usually just stamp with VersaFine Onyx Black ink and just put up with the bleed through. It's not a big deal. I can watercolor over this, I can do any kind of medium over this, and it's permanent. But I know bleed through really bothers some of you. So this technique might really work for those of you who are concerned about bleed through. And it's also great if you are not good at stamping, if you have imperfect impressions, or maybe your Bible is getting super chunky and it's hard to stamp in, this will work for you. So what I have here is some clear label paper. Now the trick for this technique to work is it has to be laser printer or laser labels. It cannot be the inkjet version. So for those of us who do a lot of print and pray type things, we may be familiar with the Avery 8665. This is the 8.5 by 11 sheets of clear sticker paper. This particular one here is for an inkjet printer because that's what a lot of us have as our home printer. This technique will not work with this. So save these for your printing, for your printables. For this technique, you're going to use the laser ones. Now, Avery does have this same one in a laser version. I, however, had some of these on hand that I had bought to use in my laser printer, and these are clear labels for laser printers. So I will link the specific ones down below that you can use. I will not link inkjet. That way you don't get confused. I will only link the ones for laser. Now this particular one is kind of is Mr. Label brand, and so it was a little bit more inexpensive. This particular package had 25 sheets. I can't remember how much it was, but it was a better price than the Avery, but I'll link both. The problem with this particular one is you can see the backing paper is yellow. So when you're coloring over it, you're not getting a true color payoff. The Avery ones, I believe, are white backgrounds. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about that. So what I did was I took several different stamp sets. These are all ones from By the Well for God. These are still available. This is one of her new alphabet sets. This is the Jesus and Pumpkin Spice. She did re-release this for fall, so it should still be available. This New Growth, New Life, I don't believe is available any longer. It's an older stamp set, but I just wanted to kind of show you some different techniques. So the nice thing about stamping on paper as opposed to your Bible is you can use things like a stamp positioning tool. So if you have some issues with getting good impressions, or maybe you already have a stamp positioning tool and you're trying to figure out how to incorporate that into your Bible journaling, this is a great technique. So you can cut down your label paper. I just cut mine down in half. Now you do not have to have one of these stamp positioning tools to do this technique. It just helps for getting better impressions, and I already had one, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. Now I have tried with a variety of inks. Lori said that some of the ladies were getting good results with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. VersaFine is a permanent pigment, so because of that it takes a little bit longer to dry. So I decided to go ahead and just stick with STAYS-ON and archival inks. These are meant to be stamped on slick surfaces and are permanent once they are dry. So label paper, it does have a slick surface, so I want to work with something like this. You can play around with VersaFine if that's what you got and see, you know, how that works for you. Let's go ahead and stamp one of these so I can show you one of the other techniques. So like I said, you can just use a stamp block to ink this up and stamp it on there. I'm gonna go ahead and use the stamp positioning tool, and I'll show you why. So I've gone ahead and laid my stamp down like impression side down. This is the flat back of the stamp is facing up. So just like you would stamp it, go ahead and close the door. That'll pick up the stamp It is sticky, so you might have to reposition things. You do want to make sure that you're positioned in the corner, so flush against the top, flush against the side. That way you can stamp more than once if you need to. I'm going to go ahead and use STAIS-On just because I have a bigger ink pad in that. My ink pad is getting a little bit dry, so I'll go ahead and ink this up. And since mine's a little bit dry, I have to be extra generous there. And then I'm going to go ahead, STAIS-On dries quickly, so you want to move fast once you get that inked up. I'm going to go ahead and just press down really good and then lift up. Now I got a fairly good impression. There are some areas where there's some spottiness where it wasn't super good. I could ink this up again, and because I've got it flush to the top, flush to the side, I could go ahead and re-stamp this again if I wanted to, and it would be in the exact same position. For the sake of this, I'm not really going to worry about that too much. And then I'll clean that a little bit later there. So let's set that aside. Now when working on this paper, you want to be careful. I'm going to hit this with my heat tool very quickly just to kind of make sure it's dry, but this paper will kind of do weird stuff if it gets too hot. So just beware of that. Okay, so it is meant for a laser printer, which does apply heat. So it does tolerate heat a little bit better than your, whatchamacallit, inkjet paper. So now you can take this and you can color this with a variety of mediums. So like this one here, I colored with some Faber-Castell brush markers. These are permanent once they are dry, though I am noticing this is wanting to smear a little bit just because I haven't let it sit very long. Okay, so this was colored with the Faber-Castell brush markers. This one here was colored with the Arteza brush markers. This is a great technique. Again, if you've got maybe some products that you've bought for Bible journaling and have found they just don't work, they bleed through, or they don't react on Bible paper very well. These, I really love these. They're like a watercolor brush marker. I have a review of these on my channel. I'll try to link it down below. And so it's a brush filled with dye-based paint, and because it's dye-based, it bleeds through your Bible pages, which, you know, isn't great, but it's great for coloring on something like this. So you can, so I just scribbled down some color, took a damp paintbrush, moved the color down, moved the color around a little bit. Now you can also use watercolors if you wanted to, just to keep in mind you're painting on a slick surface. So the watercolor is going to behave a little bit differently on this than it is on Bible paper, but you're not messing up your Bible. You can test things, try things out, mess things up, and it's not in your Bible, so you're creating these images like this. You can even stamp out words. Make sure you're not misspelling something before you stick it down in your Bible. So you can spell out words with alpha stamps. If you mess one up, you could cut these out individually. So that's kind of nice. And with clear sticker paper, it blends right into the page. So you don't have to fussy cut super close. You can just kind of roughly cut it out. I'm going to roughly cut this out so I can show you another technique here. But I would encourage you to try out a variety of different products, different paints, different maybe mermaid markers, things like that. You do want to make sure that your ink that you stamped with is 100% dry before you go in with any wet mediums. She had some ladies even test out Neocolor 2 crayons and things like that, and it did work. So what I have over here is a piece of paper. I'm not going to do this directly in my Bible page, but this kind of mimics a Bible page. It's just some nice quality thick copy paper, kind of similar to the Illustrating Bible pages. So now what you'll see is I can pull this off and stick it down, and now I've got custom stickers using the stamps. So there's a lot of you sometimes that get stamps and you're like, I'm not really a big stamp person, I don't have good luck with stamps. Now you can use those stamps in your collection. You can see it just blends right into the page. It does have, this particular paper does have kind of a glossy finish. I believe it's matte, but it still has a little bit of a shine, and you know, so just be aware of that. And it is a little bit difficult to write over with a journaling pen, so, you know, just keep that in mind. But this one here was the one done with Faber-Castell brush markers. And look how vibrant that color is. Super, super pretty. Another technique that you can do is actually, and was what Lori had intended when they kind of discovered this, was to add some little splashes of color to your Bible page first. So watercolors typically do not bleed through Bible pages as long as you're, you know, not using super cheap watercolors. So you could go ahead and add some splashes of watercolor to your page, just like this. I want to kind of get it roughly the shape of that flower there. And I'm just using some, these are some custom watercolors from Etsy shops. These up here are some Prima watercolors. I'm going to add in kind of a darker center there. I'm going to dry this really quick. Okay, so you can get really detailed adding, you know, shadows and layers, but for the sake of the video, I'll keep it pretty simple. So this is just a stamped image, no color on it, and then I can go ahead and stick that down over the watercolor and let the watercolor kind of peek through the floral piece. So that's two different ways that you could do it. You could use mediums that you know don't bleed through underneath your stickers, and this is better than stamping it directly down, because, you know, I may have done all that work of painting and then I mess up my stamping. Well, then what are you gonna do? So this is kind of a fail-proof way. Another nice thing about having it on the sticker paper is you can stamp it out and then kind of move it around on your page to see, you know, exactly where you want it before sticking it down. Typically when you stamp, you are committed, that's where it's gonna stay, and you can't move it around. But this gives you the ability to, maybe I had several different pieces, could kind of stage my page out first and then go in and stick things down. So, you know, maybe I want this underneath the flower or something like that. Now just keep in mind it is clear sticker paper, so I could layer overlap just a little bit here if I wanted to. You are gonna have, you know, some thickening where the stickers are layered on top of each other, but now I can, you know exactly where I want to put that word. So there's a really quick look at how to use laser jet clear label paper with stamps in your Bible journaling or even card making, whatever projects that you have in mind. You do want to try to stick to one of these inks that are meant for stamping on slick surfaces, but experiment, play. I have not tried everything, so you guys try out and let me know what you find out. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below. Maybe you tried something that I didn't think of, leave that down below. Don't forget to save all of your little scraps and pieces like this, because you can use these to stamp on and you don't need to throw them away, so hold on to those. Check out the description box down below. I will have as much product as I can linked down below, including the label paper that I used today, as well as the Avery label paper that you want for this technique, and the stamps that I mentioned. Give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.